From the cradle to the grave, you will at some point need a lawyer. Whether you are registering a birth, buying real estate, or writing your last will and testament.
Can you imagine a world without lawyers? Oh!
Over the last 2 decades, legal costs have steadily increased well above consumer prices, while demand has stagnated. Is the legal services industry ripe for disruption? There were no lawyers in ancient times. The closest one could find were the Athenian orators. However, Athenian orators faced serious structural obstacles. First, there was a rule that individuals were supposed to plead their own cases, which was soon bypassed by the increasing tendency of individuals to ask a friend for assistance. However, around the middle of the 4th century, the Athenians disposed of the perfunctory request for a friend second, a more serious obstacle, which the Athenian orators never completely overcame, was the rule that no one could take a fee to plead the cause of another. This law was widely disregarded in practice, but was never abolished, which meant that orators could never present themselves as legal professionals or experts. The Roman Emperor Claudius, who ruled between 10 BC and 13 AC, was the first to legalize advocacy, though he imposed a ceiling on fees at 10,000 sesterces, which apparently wasn't much money. And in the late Roman Empire, notaries first showed up, and like their modern-day descendants, the civil law notaries, they were responsible for drafting wills, conveyances, and contracts. During the Middle Ages, the Church regulated legal professionals, who practiced mostly canon law, a trend which continued to be adopted throughout most of Europe. By 1275, a statute was enacted that prescribed punishment for professional lawyers guilty of deceit. Not much change occurred over the following centuries. By the early 20th century, large law firms started taking shape and recruiting the best legal talent and developing the hourly rate business model, which further increased the gap between the quality of service offered to different income strata. As law firms became able to increase revenues by charging steep prices, incentives for innovation all but disappeared for a decade, as competition was limited and knowledge was accumulated inside a few brilliant legal minds. By the second half of the 20th century, large law firms dominated the market, and through the hourly rate model collected huge amounts of revenue from clients. But as the new century arrived, new threats started to surface.
Story for you now involving technology and one very enterprising teenager, a British 19-year-old who programmed a chatbot. Think of it as kind of a robotic lawyer. This lawyer has successfully fought 160,000 tickets since it was launched last year. The service free, currently working in the UK and also New York.
Baker Hostetler, one of the biggest law firms in the United States, says it's hired a robot named Ross.
Looking ahead to 2016 and the challenges that law firms have, I think the biggest challenge that law firms have is innovation and modernization.
Meet IBM's Watson.
Jeopardy! The IBM Challenge.
Here we go. Brad, if you're ready, Make your first choice.
Let's take alternate meanings for 200, Alex.
4-letter word for a vantage point or a belief. Brad.
What is a view?
Yes. Oh?
What is chic?
No, sorry. Brad.
What is class?
Class, you got it. Watson?
What is Sauron?
Sauron is right, and that puts you into a tie for the lead with Brad. Watson.
Who is Franz Liszt?
You are right.
What is violin?
Good.
Who is the church lady?
Yes. Watson.
What is narcolepsy?
You are right, and with that, you move to $36,681. Ken.
What's a committee?
Watson.
What is executor?
Right.
Same category, 1600.
Answer, they double. Over to Ken Jennings now. 18,200 going in. Bram Stoker is what we're looking for, and we find who is Stoker. I, for one, welcome our new computer overlord. And your wager? The wager was $1,000. That takes you up to $19,200. Yesterday wasn't so good for you. You had $4,800. That gives you a two-day total of $24,000. Now we come to Watson. We're looking for Bram Stoker, and we find who is Bram Stoker, and the wager? Hello, $17,973, $41,413, and a two-day total of $77,147. And that means, ladies and gentlemen, that World Vision and the World Community Grid, two very worthwhile charities, are each going to benefit with $500,000.
On that showdown on one of America's most beloved game shows, Jeopardy! Two human champions going brain to brain with a supercomputer named Watson.
But what is Watson, and how does it relate to legal services?
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Despite what Hollywood would have you believe, a lawyer's job is mostly quite boring.
The majority of the work of a lawyer is actually spent in the office, sometimes long hours, and it's researching, it's writing.
Sweetheart, you don't need law school. Law school's for people who are boring and ugly and serious. And you button none of those things.
A lawyer's brain is like a really smart search engine, able to find and interpret the appropriate information in the form of statutory or case law and then apply it to a particular circumstance. A number of online services and apps already available are able to perform many of these functions more efficiently than humans, potentially bringing down costs for law firms substantially.
There are systems that will sort out the kinds of problems that we thought required human empathy or human judgment or human creativity. They won't work like human beings, but on the strength of vast amounts of data and brute force processing, these systems will produce outcomes, satisfaction for the clients that will often outstrip the human being.
When you are out of order, you're out of order. You're out of order. The whole trial is out of order.
Meet Ross.
Ross helps lawyers answer complex legal questions with our proprietary legal cognition framework. Legal cognition analyzes the relationships and meanings of words to understand the legal concepts they form, enabling Ross to read through millions of laws and find precise answers. The more questions and laws Ross reads, the smarter it gets.
And Ross has many relatives.
Drinking beer in the hot sun. I fought the law and I won. I fought the law and I won. I needed sex and I got mine. I fought the law and I won. I fought the law and I won. A lot of mean shit if you got the right friend. Look how this country's
The technology has many potential applications. and many more. So what does the future hold? The number of jobs that can be performed by machines has increased exponentially since 2000, and the trend will continue for the next 20 years.
Contracts. Accountants and lawyers are still needed. They're going to be needed for complex tax structuring, for path-breaking litigation, but machines will shrink their ranks and make these jobs harder to come by.
Don't touch my stuff! Hey, this isn't the YMCA.
But what does this all mean for lawyers? The industry is about to undergo a fundamental shift in its business model. Technology has the potential to lower costs while increasing the quality of legal services. By equalizing the playfield, technology can increase competition, lower costs and fees, and increase revenues by optimizing the use of time, in the end benefiting the consumer.
Thanks to technology, a small firm solo lawyer can literally market and engage in business development to a global audience if that's appropriate to the lawyer's practice. Lawyers also have technology tools that enable them to engage in litigation on a level equal to that of lawyers in larger firms. Technology has really been the great equalizer, enabling solo and small firms to play on the same field as large firm counterparts.
So there is plenty of opportunity for those who choose to adopt technology and adapt. But how do you change an industry packed with risk-averse people? The digital revolution is here to stay, whether we like it or not. There really isn't a choice any longer for those who wish to remain relevant. New technologies may shift the paradigms on which the legal services industry was built, but rejecting them can only lead to irrelevance and eventual death. For those brave souls willing to take the leap into tomorrow, the future is absolutely bright.